Okay, welcome back. In this lecture, we will see the assertion concepts in JMeter. So basically, what is assertion? So now you will record the script and you will run back it successfully, right? So once you run it, how will you validate that whether the script which got run is passed or failed? Okay, basically you need to have some checkpoints to make sure that whether if these checkpoints are satisfied, that means my script is passed. Okay, some check you need to do on your response, and you need to validate it to make sure to say that the script is running as per expected. So basically assertions are something which will help us to validate our response. Okay, so basically all our performance are on API level, hitting the request and we get the response. Okay, so we will validate that response. We will check any the response with the help of assertions, and we will come to conclusion saying that this script is running as per expected. Okay, so till now we have seen recording and playing back and arranging it in a proper way, and we ran the scripts. But now in this session we will see to add a validation to the response which we got while running the test. Okay, now first let's start with recording one basic application. uh, as usual, as I always prefer to record in Workbench. That's a rough folder for us. Later we can pull up things in back to thread group in test plan. Okay, so Workbench, right click, add non-test elements, HTTP test script recorder, right? So throughout our course we will be using 7070 port number because I configured my Firefox in 7070, and I'll be using test script recorder, and I need to sample it in each groups. Done. I'll add exclude, so this will not include in my recording, right? So that's it. I'll start the server first, thereafter we will see the what application we need to record. Okay, let me start the server. Okay, now yes, our recording started. Now let's go back to our Firefox where we actually configured our proxy and hit this URL. Right, so now we are in this login page. It's saying to enter this user ID and password for us to get login. Enter Tom Smith for username and super secret password. Cool, they have given us in our text itself. Okay, that's it. So we'll log into it, and yeah, so once we log in we just get a basic page saying you logged into secure area, and when you are done click logout below. Okay, so let's log out. That's all. We just done one flow, login and logout. So now let's come back and open our test script recorder. There are three groups got recorded. One is login page, and this is our URL event. See, you should able to know which is not required for you uh, to keep on to run. Okay, these got recorded but it's not required for us. This is like some events which is navigating to some other URL, and these are some font size. Okay, so this stuff is not required to us. Let's simply uh, okay, let's copy first it into our thread group, then we start deleting. Because if you delete something now and when you copied it back and you felt that your script is failing due to that step, then you can come to Workbench and add that step. Okay, make a practice of just copy entire dump into. Okay, let me create thread group here first. Test plan and add threads thread group. Okay, so now add all this, control C and paste it there. Okay, so you can see that arrow mark which got pasted. So this is login, authenticate and event. Okay, so I guess these are not required for us. Let's delete this. Okay, authenticate event, even these not required for us. This is logout, I guess. Let me delete all this. Okay, so cool. First login, and then it tries to enter credentials, and thereafter it logs out. Okay, now let's run this, but to run this we need a listener which we can monitor the stuff. Add listeners. So view result is the best one to validate. Okay, so let's run this and see first before we start putting assertions and we start validating them. Let's run this. So when you click on this, it definitely asks to save. Should save the test plan and assertions. Okay, 1 second. Right, assertions. Okay, yep, it's running now. Login, authenticate, event, logout. Okay, but once again, don't just estimate by seeing green ticks that your script ran successfully. You cannot know until unless you go and check how you got response here. So here this is the request username and password, and okay, here this is response data, and come down. Okay, this is where you can log into secured area. This is not logged in. Okay, so we have given authenticate, right? It's by response you should get as welcome you are into secured area as per our browser, but still in the response it says this is where you can log in, and it's asking username password. That means something fishy, right? So that's what I'm saying. See, here it's shown as green tick, but ultimately when you see your response, it's still in login page. This request, authenticate request, the response should be the home page of log secured area. This one. Okay, I think back will work. Yeah, this one. This text we need to see in response, but unfortunately here we still see a page of login information. See, this is where you in the sense this one. This text we are reading in the response, which is wrong. Once we log in, we should see that. Okay, I think I have deleted something which is important, so that's why keep a copy of here. So I just guessed it. Let me delete this authenticate. So yes, let me paste back. I'll move it up. Okay, view registry, delete all, and now run. Now we have included everything. Authenticate. Okay, these no need to worry because these are some kind of dot font size, so we are not interested in that. We have to see whether we got response, secure, login. No, we still don't see the proper output here. What could be the issue? Sampler result. What is the username it went? Okay, sorry. For this we need to add something called cookie manager. Okay, because it's not maintaining cookies. JMeter by default will not maintain the cookies of the session. Once you are into login page, it will use the cookies to navigate, to authenticate, and to log out. Okay, so the default JMeter will not maintain cookies. That's the reason they have specifically given us to add cookie manager. If you see config element, you see as cookie manager. Just add this, it will automatically maintain cookie session for your application. Okay, so more about this I'll talk you in the future. There is a concept called correlation. When I am talking that, I'll let you know what about cookie manager. There's nothing basically. you need to add this cookie manager to make sure your session maintains cookie. If you don't provide this, by default there, if you see now view result tree, it's in no cookies, so it expects cookies for to complete your application successfully, right? If you just add this HTTP cookie manager, it will work, right? You can delete now these two. I hope it should work now. Save all and run it. Okay, and response authenticate. Yep, see that, welcome to secure area. Okay, that means we got successful response when we authenticate, saying that we are in home page after logging out. When you are in click logout. Okay, so till now what we have done, we have seen manually, okay, what is the request and what is the response, and we found that there is something missing. We read it manually and came to conclusion that it's still not logged in because I am seeing the text which is present in login page. Okay, and now I am just concluding by seeing this welcome, saying that as now I went to the actual page. So script should handle this. Okay, we should not check manually every time. When you are running on daily basis, you cannot go and check for each and every test case what is the response, is that pass or fail. So you should have some mechanism to handle this. So here where assertions comes to picture. Okay, we will validate this response data using the help of assertions, and that will give us the result. So let's see that how we can do in our next session. So I think you can finish up this from your side too. So get ready, we'll start with how to learning assertions in our coming lecture. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now let's put on validations here. Now, okay, authenticate view results tree. So till now we have seen manually, but okay, by seeing welcome we came to conclusion that it logged in successfully. When you are done, click logout now. So I'll add assertion to it. Okay, but see, if the validation you are putting is under authenticate, right? So in the same way, just go back to your thread group, wherever you see authenticate, right click, add and say assertion. Okay, if you simply randomly add it somewhere, for example, if you add it for the 63/event, the assertion, so that assertion will be applicable to only this request. So it will look for the response of this event only, because you have added as a child item to this your request. So for whatever request you add as a child item, assertion will look for the response for that parent item only. So be careful while adding assertions. Here we are dealing with authenticate, 57/authenticate. So click it, right click, add assertions. These are different type of assertions available to us. Let's look few of them now, and based upon situation we will see the remaining, and not all necessary for you. Okay, as I told you earlier, JMeter is a world in itself. Okay, but still we will pick up assertions. The first and most important assertion, response assertion. Okay, right, in the response assertion, okay, what's the response we got here? I want to know welcome to the secure area. Okay, so my validation is that if this text is present in the response, I can happily say that my script got passed, it is successfully authenticated. That assurity I can give, right? Because if it is logged in, we have successfully reached this page, welcome to secure area, that means it logged in. So let me keep that assertion. In response assertion, in this fields, it's asking what field I need to test for your information. So check the response text. This is nothing but response text. Okay, we are asking to check the response text. I selected that, and it should contains add. Okay, add whatever you want to write here. Click on add, so one column will be added, and paste it here, right? So that's it. It says that check the response text whether it contains this text. If it contains, then it's true. If not, it is false. Okay, that's it. I'll add one more assertion, response assertion itself, and here I say check the response code. What is the code? It returned sampler result. You can see that 200. Okay, check the response code. It should equals to add, because there's only one word, right? So we can write equals. Before we have written contents because there are a lot of information in the text, so we are just validating whether this text is contains in that page or not. But here it's straightforward. Cool. We have added one more saying response code, right? So, and now to see the results of your assertions, one thing sure that if assertion failed, here it will show as a red mark. Okay, for the details of, if you want to know about the assertion, why it failed, what is it expecting, and what it printed finally, for that information you need to add one more listener, just like results. It gives the results about assertion. Okay, assertion results, right? Here you can see the information about it. Okay, now we have added these two, right? So earlier we were doing it manually. Right now we can do it from the help of assertions. Let's run this. Okay, so execution is done. If assertion is passed, that means your script is also passed. You need not worry going and checking response every time, because this is taking care of that. So let's go back to our assertion results and see. Okay, if there is no error message printed here, that means all got success. Okay, these are just steps, label names. If there is something issue, it will print out with error 2-3 lines. Okay, but if you see there is nothing else, and even, okay, let's do something. Let's change it. Let's do negative testing now. I'll give code as 206. Okay, and now I'll run. Let's see how it displays. Yep, you can see that red mark, and it says response assertion failed. Got it? So you need not worry about checking every time manually. If you write assertion, this will take care. It says assertion false because it's expecting 200 and comparison with 206. Go to assertion results. Here you can see that received 200, but it is expecting 206. Test fail, code expand. Okay, that's it. And pattern matching also you can do. Now for example, we will do the scenario. Before, if you don't add cookie manager, it's failing, right? I'll delete the cookie manager and I'll make sure 200 fine. Now welcome to secure area should fail. Before we have seen manually and or identified it. Yep, gone. Response assertion, text expected to welcome to secure area, but it's not identifying. We know that it gone because we deleted cookie manager. So I'm just showing you negative testing way how these assertions work for you. Okay, so let me add it back. So make a practice of adding cookie manager every time whenever you develop one script. Whenever you develop any script, make a practice of adding cookie manager, because there are some sites which are completely run based upon cookies. They expect it as mandatory parameters. If you don't provide them, you saw, right, practically how we face the error. Okay, so you should be careful in that. So what I suggest is make a practice of adding it every time, so then it won't be a problem to you. Okay, now we will see few more assertions for logout event. Where is logout? There is one more assertion called size assertion, and which are applicable to this test case particularly. Okay, and XPath assertions you will see in web services. Okay, I'll try to make a module on web services, how to perform load test on web services. When I teach that module, I'll talk about XPath and XMLs. Okay, those are the perfect scenarios to teach assertions. Here you not required. There is no point of view in talking about XMLs here. And HTML assertion. And what else we have? Duration assertion. Okay, so basically size assertion. Okay, go to your view results tree for logout. What is the size it's returning to us? 14,661. So this you can put as assertion. This is very important. In load testing, you have to know how many bytes it is returning to us. Okay, that's the what a main theme of ours in writing a JMeter, right? So we have to know how many bytes it is returning. So client says make sure this application, this request should mandatorily return 15,000 bytes. If not, there is some issue, stop the script. That's what he instructed you. You simply create a size assertion and you say size should not be should be greater than 1500. Okay, whatever you get here should be greater than 1500. So that it should fail now, right? Because it's returning as 14,661 only. Okay, that's about size assertion. And duration assertion says in how many milliseconds that this logout operation took to process. Okay, that information you don't get it here, I guess. That you need to put a benchmark, because whenever you start performance testing, you will get some benchmark parameters from your supervisor saying that I need to get this request. When this request is processed, the byte should return. Okay, for example, when I'm putting 100 users load, for each second throughput should be some 5,000 bytes per second. Okay, throughput in the sense how many bytes it's returning to us, and at the same time request should be processed within a 5,000 milliseconds. That means 5 seconds. Okay, that's also too much. It should be 2,000 milliseconds. Let's assume, or let's keep it 5. That means 5 seconds. So he might put a benchmark saying if he feels that logout scenario is the much important one, he might say that this should not take more than 5,000 milliseconds to execute. If it takes, there is something wrong in it. Okay, let's do with duration assertion and put it 5,000. Okay, for size you can do that. Okay, these two are mainly used for that purpose. And next is HTML assertion. There is nothing to do here. It simply says whether the HTML code of the request what you are processing is as per standards or not. Might be it looks for whether are there any tags missing or any kind of coding standards deviation, it will throw us error. Okay, you can give that up to here, the values are there, right? If you say 5 till 5 errors, it will not throw error. After 5 it will show an error. For warning also, if you give some 20 warnings, till 20 warnings it will not throw an error. Let's keep it 0. Error, if you get any one also, it's a matter. Okay, warnings let it be there till 20. We are not bothered about warnings. Okay, let it be. So more than 20 it will throw an error, right? That's what HTML assertion. Okay, so we are all set to run this code again with the help of size, duration, HTML, and in the login page we are looking for response code and response text. Okay, so many assertions. So let's run all these step by step now, and HTTP. Let's see how many fail, how many pass. Okay, there's only one fail, that is logout, because size assertion, yeah, we talked, right? It is returning 4,845, but we are putting 1500 bytes, which is not acceptable. Okay, remaining all got passed. You can see that in assertion results. Only size assertion is the matter, because we voluntarily failed it by giving more bytes. Because size what it returned here for you is the size in bytes, logout, right? Yeah, 14,845. But you asked for 15,000, which is wrong. Okay, that's about how we deal with assertions. And yeah, there are few more, but it's related to XML, XPath, CSS, which might be useful when you are putting load on web services or REST API. I'll talk you about that when I'm thinking to make module on that. So hopefully in that module I'll just discuss where these assertions help to us. Okay, so yeah, we can have a practice of picking out the assertions, and okay, you can work on it. So that's it about today's session, and we'll meet with a new other topic in our next class. Thank you.
Okay, in this lecture we will look into controllers. Okay, so basically controllers are nothing but block. Okay, a block which consists a set of requests. Okay, you can perform the whatever want up to your wish about the request present in that block. Okay, for example, make a block, and if you want to run the requests which is present in the block for 100 times continuously in a loop, you can do it. Or for example, you need to make a condition. If that condition satisfies, then only go and execute that block. That means go and execute the request present in that block basically. So you can put it in a block and write your specific conditions to execute that. Okay, tomorrow you might be asked that, okay, make sure that these requests are very important in our application and run it for 1,000 times. Okay, so in general, if you till now what we have seen, we have created a test script and we can keep it run for 1,000 times using thread group. But scenario here is I want to run only those particular requests for 1,000 times. Okay, just example I'm telling. So what you will do, you just need to put those requests in a block which we say as a controller. There are multiple controllers available for Apache JMeter. Let's check one by one. This was a basic concept of controllers and usage of it in JMeter. Basically you can customize those based upon your requirements, right? So let's start just by understanding few of the most important controllers which we come across our scripting life with JMeter. Okay, so we'll do that in this section. So for that we'll just go to any site here, Mercury. Yeah, okay, I need to start the server, right? Without starting the proxy server, there's no point in hitting the URL there. Okay, let's quickly record our script. So maybe you all are familiar by now, okay, the usage of all this. Right, so that excludes, and now click on record. Okay, now so if you want to, okay, let's go back and start our recording. I'm just logging into the page. It's newtools.demoaut.com. okay, so credentials I provide you here is test, password test. Okay, so we can sign in successfully. Okay, so once signed in, these are the two links which we are interested, okay, to put in controller. Okay, let's see that later. I'm just clicking on cruises to know what all cruises available for me, and I'm clicking on car rentals. Okay, that's it. So we are just done with that, or let's click on hotels. Maybe this site is not appropriate, at least this page what we are looking. Flights, let's click. Right, again we just reach the same page. Okay, done. Let's log out. Okay, now these are the records, recorded queues, and under construction. Okay, let me just run a basic run before we start putting something. Let's copy, create a thread group, and paste down all those. Okay, so let's put a listener and see how it's running before we start talking about view results tree. Okay, done. So let me run this. Okay, so this is controller. Sign in, login. This is something black which is not at all required for us. Its request is okay, we are not bothered about it. Right, reservation under construction. Let me delete first this black to avoid confusion. Okay, sorry, this is in workbench. There is no use of doing it in workbench. Right, cruise, and then let me delete this construction as well. We just start with base 2 elements: reservation, cruise, login. Is this required? Okay, this is landing on base page. So let me put saying that home page. Let me write a neat description. Change the name here, it will automatically reflect here. Okay, the 1/ all these are there, right? Let's put a neat name, so it will be good for us. Login, Mercury Cruise, and reservation. Sign off. Okay, yeah. So it's done. Let's run it one more time and let's confirm. Okay, so error, we got something here. The target server failed to respond. uh, Response data, what it returned for us. It seems correct. Let me run one more, or let me check my internet connection once. Okay, so now it's perfect. Okay, I just reconnected my connection and it looks good. Okay, let's delete this, at least this one sign off, which is not required for us. So cool, now we are at this page. Okay, now I'll bring the concept of controller, right? So let us assume that first I'll talk about simple controller. Okay, simple controller in the sense, if you click on all the requests, okay, you are getting something like here, simple controller. Did you observe any time till now? We are just putting down our request after recording from test script recorder back to thread group, right? That's what we are doing. But if you click on that request, okay, in this request there are set of other requests as well. This is a parent controller under which we have our requests. Did you observe this?
till now? Okay, so we are just opening something like this and we are saying these are our requests. Okay, but we are not concentrating on what is this. This looks like something folder where we open, we are getting these requests. Okay, this is a block. That's what I defined right in my last session. Basically controllers are a block, but there are different type of controllers where you can manipulate your block. Simple controller is, the name itself says, it's very simple. There is no manipulation on that, straightforward. It acts as a block where we can store a set of requests into it. That's it. So all these are simple controllers only, right? So the definition of simple controller says it consists of set of requests. Yes, open it and you are saying as request in two, there are two requests here. So that's what simple controller means. And without noticing, we are working for simple controller from last few lectures, right? But we didn't talk about this word, so this is actually means. Okay, now if you open test script recorder, I told you in my initial class that I'll be talking about this later. We are saying that when we are grouping, I am asking you to put each group in a new controller. Okay, that is the reason we are getting all these in simple controllers. Now we got the point. Whenever you are recording, if you just go with do not group samplers option, you will not see any controllers. But whenever I select, I am selecting put each group in new controller. Okay, if you do that, they will be stored in separate blocks, right? So that's what simple controller says. Okay, this is the base one about what I'm talking. So now let's see what all other controllers we have. Okay, so thread group, add, logic controller. Okay, these are different type of controllers we have in JMeter, right? So there are few as I told, this is vast and everything will be used for some specific purpose, not only for web based, for Oracle SQL and file transfer protocols, web services. It all depends on the perception, but we will see the few most important controllers where you use in our real time, right? So let's start first with loop controller. Okay, now crews and reservation, these two I want to put in a loop. Okay, let me create, I'll right click on the crews and say insert parent. Okay, so because this should controller should come top on it, and when I say insert parent, it's asking what logic controller you want as a parent. Then you go and select loop controller, right? So this is the loop controller under which you have Mercury crews. Now you need both crews and reservation request should go into this loop. Okay, because the requirement for us is, so our client wants, don't log in multiple times and don't sign up multiple times. Just do it once, but once you log in, just rigorously test crews and reservation pages, because these are the most important pages and we should look for performance. Okay, that's what requirement. Now if you use just thread group here, login also done every time. Okay, login also does 100 times, right? So you don't want that. You want only 2 requests to happen that. So if that is the case, just use loop controller, and Mercury crews is right now in this loop controller because I right clicked and just added parent. Now let's move reservation also into it. Just drag and drop into it. Yep. Okay. Now in this controller we have both reservation and crews. If you close, both will be inside. So click on that and say run for 50 times. Okay. So what's the situation here is, login once, do this loop, run this for 50 times and then sign off. Okay, so that's what this controller says. And let's go results tree and let me show you how it happens. See that it's logged in one, but crews reservation, so these are keep on executing. If you observe, crews reservation, see, this will execute 50 times and finally it goes for sign off. Okay, so here is the where you use the concept of loop controller. Fine. So finally you will see logout page. This will keep on executing for 50 times. I think, is it done? No, it's still going on. Okay, let's see the other controller without wasting much time. Okay, let's be quick and learn something new in each and every minute. So now we go for while controller. Okay, so before I'll just results tree. I think execution is done. Okay, it's still going on. I'm stopping it because it has to run, loop has to run 50 times, right? I am forcibly stopping. Okay, now I'll change the controller. Right click on loop controller, say add, and select while controller. Okay, where it is added for us, it's not required, right? Change controller logic while. Okay, cool. Now it went off. We need to delete this. Okay, so while controller expects that unless you provide some condition here, till that condition is true, loop keep on continuing. Okay, so you might give any condition here. If you say declare any variable here, okay, that variable declaring and validating that I will talk on Bean Shell scripting module. There you will actually come the scenarios about declaring variable and validating that. Okay, right now let's go with true. Okay, if the condition is true, the loop keep on continuing until unless the condition is set to false. Okay, I think people all know the basic usage of while controller. If you know OOPS concepts or basic Java or C++ or any other language, the usage of while is till the condition is true, loop will continue. Okay, if I keep this true, the loop will goes to infinite. Okay, so you can see that here. Same thing, loop will keep on running until unless it is false. Okay, this will go for infinite loop. And so I mean to say here is you can use while controller and define a proper condition here, okay, to make sure it works. So this condition is based upon what you are defining and your previous request. Okay, so let me stop this and right. So the next controller I need to talk about, so basically all will be on the same lines, just the basic difference you will see. One is for while loop, and if you see, this is if loop, where if the condition is satisfied, go into it, if not, skip the loop. Okay, this is not a loop, this is if satisfied, this executes only once. Okay, for example, I'll select if controller. Okay, it again got here. Okay, let me right click, change controller, logic controller if. Cool. Now okay, I'll do one thing, I'll define a variable. Let's discuss this topic here itself. In test plan, go to the test plan level and say add. Okay, these are user defined variables, basically where you can give your variable. Okay, I'll write something called store and value is 1. Okay, I am declaring a variable called store in test case level, and I am storing value 1 into it, right? Now if controller, if the condition is true, then only these two will execute, if not, skip. Right now I'll say 4 greater than 7. Okay, condition is false, right? Okay, I'll also talk about that variable declaring here. First we will see the false condition. 4 greater than 7, it is false, right? So Mercury reservation and Mercury query should not execute, because control comes here and see if that is false, then don't execute. If it's true, then only it should execute. Basically if condition. I hope you all are familiar with what if else loop does. Home page, login, and you can see sign off, right? That's it. It did not execute these two because we are setting a false condition here. Okay, and you can also set I have defined variable, right? Okay, store, sorry, this is a variable equals to 1. Okay, this dollar, okay, don't confuse of defining variable, why I'm using dollar and all. I'll clearly talk this in data driven testing module. Okay, we will drive the data from config file. There I'll clearly explain what this dollar and why we need to write like this. Okay, how we define variable. So I'm just making sure that store is a variable and value is 1. Okay, the variable value will be printed if you use dollar and braces, the 1 equals to 1. Okay, this is true, right? Check this checkbox, so it should execute now. Okay, this condition is true, so reservation and cruise should execute. Let's see. Okay, it did not execute, right? Login, it did not went. Okay, let's check. I think there is some syntax error. Just need to check. Store, I need to, oh sorry, I need to uncheck it. So we should uncheck it. Sorry, I checked it, right? So this will turn as variable expression again. Some scripting language if you are using, you have to check this. So right now we are just validating whether the store variable value equals to 1 or not. Okay, we are just cross comparing. 1 equals to 1 because the value in it is 1. So condition is true, it should go inside and should execute, right? Okay, let's view results tree, and this time it should run, I guess. Yeah, happened, right? Reservation, cruise, all this happened because if condition is true, true equals to 1 equals to 1. Before we have given 4 greater than 7, which is false. That's the reason this got not executed. Okay, so you might be wondered where I actually use all this in real time. There will be the situation where for example, take the banking account. If the user have an access of, I mean user have the privileges to this is credit card payment section. Okay, first user need to have credit card to pay it. This will check whether the user is having valid credit card, then only we will run those credit card payment requests. If you don't give this, and if you simply run all the time, if by data driving all the accounts every time, if suddenly one account does not have the a credit card feature, then on running this request script will fail. Okay, because without that feature these two requests will not get activated. So something like that, some condition you write, thereafter you execute those. Basically about how you do in your scripting, if you write if else loop the same way. Okay, that's about if controller, right? So now let's check the what other controllers we have. If we have seen while, each, and there is something called interleave controller. Okay, so if you use this controller, I don't know why every time I'm getting it on the bottom. Okay, change controller, interleave controller, right? So if you use this controller, on first run it will execute reservation, on the next run it executes cruise. Okay, it does it alternatively. Interleave controller does execution alternately. If there are totally 4 requests under this block, if you run it 10 times, for first run it picks the first block and second run it picks the second block. Okay, basically if you observe here, we are simulating the real time. Okay, and all the users, 1000 users will not access the credit card payment link at the same time. Some may see their mini statement in the bank account, or some may see the reward section, some may see the other pages, right? Basically they will be on our web page, but people will be on different links. So this kind of testing is, kind of smoke testing. We are clicking on all the links but in alternative way. Once we are trying out the reservation, once we are trying out the cruise, if you want to try it in alternative way, Okay, rather than putting load on only one request all the time, if you want to check with multiple requests randomly, sorry, alternatively, then you have to go with interleave controller. Okay, now this thread group I'll run for 10 users. Okay, and yeah, so with this interleave controller I'll log out, and now you check that. Okay, so oh, what happening? Home page, login. Where is home page? Okay, something wrong here. View results tree. What happening? Home, login. Where is our reservation? Why this is executing this many times? What did we provide? Okay. Oh, so number of threads is 1 only. If you give 10 threads, 10 threads started execution at a time and all started with home page. Let's, okay, to explain you this situation, I should not go with threads, sorry. I'll go with loop count. I'll loop 10 times and you see now. Home page, login, and this time if you go inside it, it picked Mercury reservation for first time. Second time it picked Mercury cruise. Third time again it picked reservation, but there is no cruise in this loop. And fourth time it selected cruise. Okay, alternatively it's executing these two requests. Why? Because these two are inside the interleave controller. Basically interleave controller block execute the things alternatively. If there are 10 requests on each loop, it executes one. Okay. Next 2, 3. Okay, it continues. Okay, you just don't assume that why, where actually we require this. All these are real-time scenarios. Okay, you might be asked to simulate the real-time scenarios. For example, at 10 o'clock, if the people will come onto their desk. Okay, so they are into e-commerce site. One section is for gents, one section is for ladies where they can buy their stuff. Okay, one section is for general accessories. Okay, you can't go and put a load on general accessories all the time, accessories and gadgets, because some might go for menswear, some may go for women's wear. Okay, so basically you are splitting. So ultimately load is on your website, but the load is splitting between the requests. Okay, so that's the real-time simulation. There is no point of view on putting load on one request all the time and pulling out the results. You need to simulate those, right? So in these situations the controller will come out very handy to us to make sure the interleave controllers and while loop executing many times, if loop and loop controller. Okay, so this will come to handy really. So that's it about interleave, which executes alternatively. And next controller we have to discuss here is random controller or random order, just this basic difference. So random controller is nothing but it executes randomly. Now interleave executes alternatively. First time 1, second time 2, third time 3. But random is anything it can pick. It can pick the first one 4 times and the next 2, 3 times second one, thereafter first immediately. So the name itself says it's random. Okay. So we cannot predict what it picks actually for us, right? So that's what the random controller says. You can, if you want to rigorous testing on your application, pick up random controller and leave it. JMeter will take care of executing those. Okay, you need not write specifically to execute this and that. It randomly picks and executes every time. Give the loop 1000 times and just go and get cup coffee and then verify. Random picks 1000 times each request, any request from it, and it gives you your results. Because this situation in a you can predict that you don't know what user does at what time. Okay, you just give random and see. So all these are real-time scenarios simulating. Okay, so if you want to see the result, same thing you can see. We don't know what executes. Sometimes it might pick both. Okay, so here it picked only cruise. It again picked only cruise. This is a perfect example, right? So that's it. So it keep on doing that. So it randomly executes whatever. Now this time it picked reservation. See, after 4 times it went for reservation. Okay, so that's it about. Okay, let me stop. Okay, so one more controller. So these all what I am discussing are the most important controllers where you will use. And recording controller is nothing but, okay, if you go to your workbench, add HTTP test script recorder, right? Yep, test script recorder. Here, target controller, it says use recording controller, right? But every time we select, okay, group, we select it from HTTP test recorder only. We select this option all the time. Okay, if you use specifically, JMeter guys has designed a controller name called recording controller. So if you select that option from here, all the time whenever you record, it will see where the recording controller is defined and the request will go into that block. Okay, so it's straightforward, right? If you use recording controller and define somewhere it, so whenever you record in the future, all the your request will fall into that block, right? So that's about recording controller. And there is one more controller called runtime controller. Okay, so okay, sorry, again the same issue, I did it down. So this, okay, change controller, logic controller, runtime controller. Cool. So this controller says, so how many seconds you want to rigorously run these two requests. Okay, it's not a loop. We used loop and while of loop because it basically based on condition it goes inside the loop. Okay, until unless it is true, those will execute. Okay, but we don't have any conditions and we don't have any if loop conditions, and we want both to execute to a limited amount of time. So your requirement is run these two for 45 seconds. Okay, so in real time it may be 4500 seconds, but now to show you in the lecture I am just putting 45. So run these two for 45 seconds. Okay, if you provide 45 here and run this, home it will log in. Thereafter for 45 seconds rigorously these two will execute, and once the 45 seconds is done, it will come out of block and sign off. Okay, that's the meaning of this runtime controller. So we are deciding the execution based upon the runtime seconds. Okay, so it will keep on executing till 45 seconds. So once the 45 seconds is done, and it will go for sign off. So that's all pretty much about controllers. There is one more controller important, which is transaction controller. I'll talk that in the next lecture. Okay, so these all are the, okay, the most what I discussed is the very important which we face in regular practice with JMeter. Even remaining all are easy for each loop. You can go through from the JMeter documentation or you can Google it, but you will not feel it really necessary. Okay, so I am just letting you know what all the important controllers we use. I think it's time to sign off. Maybe, oh, it will keep on running, but I asked for 10 times, right? Let's stop it. If you give for one time and see, exactly it will run for 45 seconds. Okay, so that's it about the controllers. There is one more left called transaction, which I'll be teaching in the next lecture. Thank you. Okay, so basically, so when you run all the times with any of controllers or in a normal way, for each request you get response, right? Okay, now reservation, cruise, for each request you have a response. But okay, there is a situation that credit card payment starting, there are 4 navigations. In the first page you provide amount, in next page you click the legal terms agreement, yes. Third page you say I am confirming. Fourth page finally you get a confirmation page saying thank you, your credit card has been successfully paid. So there are totally 4 pages, 4 requests. So now I am interested how much time the credit card payment is happening. Then when you run, it says that going to that page you will have one request, and clicking on agreement terms one request you will have, and final confirmation before you submit one confirmation, and thank you page. Totally 4 requests will be generated. But from business point of view, I am interested the time taken for credit card. That means total 4 requests time I need. Okay, those all are treated as one transaction. Okay, so basically transaction in the sense one end-to-end operation of flow in an application, we say it as transaction. This is one transaction. Or you are adding new account, bank account to your existing account. So starting point where you say click on add new account button, giving the details, validating it, confirming, so all those are treated as one transaction. Not only in the bank terms transaction, don't assume that bank transaction here, anything the end-to-end operation flow we say as a transaction. Now just assume that, so first we are reservation, we are going to this land page, and then we are selecting cruise. Okay, just assume these two are different requests, but ultimately we say it as cruise reservation. Okay, cruise reservation, this will go on first reservation page, and this is confirmation page, assume. Now these two are nothing but one transaction for cruise reservation. Okay, so even in the results we are interested to see the overall output of these two. Okay, if your aim is to get the output, now for example view results tree, if you go for each reservation, for each thing you get a response saying that these many bytes sent, this much time taken, this is the all the information you have. Okay, body size is 8055. But now I am interested in transaction result. I don't want each request. There are totally 4 pages for credit card. Okay, I want entire credit card transaction result output. Okay, so basically you need to be understand, if you are presenting to your supervisor, okay, the login transaction is fine, but when you are making a credit card transaction is little bit low, then you can dig inside and understand what request making it low. But ultimately from business point of view, they will be asked you to define a set of transaction, credit card payment one transaction, bank account adding other transaction, and third party transfer money to other account other transaction. Ultimately for each transaction there might be multiple requests inside. Okay, but from a business point of view, they are interested what is the outcome of this transaction. For a user to complete credit card payment, how much seconds does our application is taking. Okay, then you cannot say there are 4 requests for here, one is a legal agreement, and that is you can adding these 4 and saying, so these 4 requests, right, for this this have 8480 bytes and these have these 4, will you add and tell him? No, you have to give a proper straightforward result. So if that is the case, if you define this as a transaction controller, insert parent logic controller, and you have transaction controller, right? And when you click on it, it says generate parent sample. Okay, click on it because this is parent, I want information as a parent. So sum of all these. Okay, runtime, it's okay. So basically all this will be in this transaction. Let me delete this, or I don't know why it lost transaction. Okay, we can delete. Oh, both will get deleted. I'll add on the top. Some hierarchy problem. Okay, now we can delete it. Right. So till now we got Mercury Cruise reservation different request, right? Now run it for one, delete all and check it. You see that it's returning as a single and straightforward. It says transaction controller, and you see the result here. This is the result of your transaction. Number of samples in transaction 3, number of failing samples 0. See, it's giving you the information about all the requests present inside it. If you go to the login page, does it give you any information? There are multiple requests inside it, but it does not speak about how many requests inside it true, inside it false. But if you select transaction controller, it says there are totally 3 inside it and there is nothing failing. Load time, it's complete load time of these 3 requests, and body size in the bytes. Okay, so you don't get any request and response because we are basically summing up all these 3 and giving a single straightforward output result. Okay, so this is how, if you say this is a credit card transfer, and inside it you might have some 25 to 30 requests to just make a one credit card payment. Define a transaction controller and ultimately see your result here, sample result. Okay, so and also you have one listener as well, especially for transaction. If you add that add-on, okay, we have add some plugins right in our thread group lecture. If you add those, you will have an add-on called transactions per second. Okay, so if you run it again, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so number of transactions, is it done? Let the result. Okay, it's done. Okay, you can see that setting chart. Okay, we are interested in Mercury transaction. This is our transaction. So all these are single pages. The pink one, so it has taken totally 2.5 seconds for us to complete this transaction. Okay, total credit card payment is taking 2.5 seconds. You can come to a conclusion by seeing this. Fine, so that also you have here, and or in view result tree you can see here. That's it. So this is where we see about a transaction controller setting up all the requests and giving a common report for all the requests inside it. Okay, so that's it about this, and yeah, with this we can wind up these controllers. You can use it whenever you need, but basically when they ask you to put load, go for runtime controller, and if they ask to put you load for some 1000 seconds, give it 1000 and just relax. It will log in once, log out once, but the requests which are present in runtime controller will run for 1000 seconds. Okay, so that's how you can deal with that. So that's about controllers, and we'll talk the new topic in our next lecture. Thank you. Hey all, so in this lecture we will see how to handle timers in JMeter. Okay, so basically where the timers will come into picture. Now for example, you have some 50 users with which you are putting load on application. Okay, but in real time situation, not 50 users will simultaneously accept one request, right? So for example, you want to click on customer care link. Fine, so it might be in 1 or 2 minutes there may be 50 users who are hitting that URL, but hit in on 1 second hitting 50 users is not accurate behavior, because very rarely it happens. So if that happens in 2-3 minutes, okay, then we can agree. You can say that customer care link is clicked 50 times in 60 seconds in 1 minute, fine. But customer care link is clicked 50 times in single second, that might not be a accurate real-time behavior. But still people go with that kind of situation to actually get the load and see how many bytes it is returning and how much time it's taking. But if you want to actually mimic some near to real-time behavior, you can go ahead and put some sleep between each threads. Now for example, now if I am using 10 users, after completion of one user you might go and put a sleep for 2-3 seconds. Okay, so for example, once you complete the end-to-end script, database will get update, right? Assume that you are posting a new transaction and posting or purchasing some item, and now currently there are 4 items of that product. Okay, so one guy went and purchased it, fine. So it might take a few seconds in database to update, so that 4 count should come now down to 3. because one user got purchased. Okay, so if 4 people accessing at a time, then there might be cause of actually getting a proper data. So in these situations you want to put a load, but with a kind of just space, what you say, kind of gap, sleep between the two threads. Okay, so if I run for 10 threads, after running a single thread, you have to take a 2 or 3 seconds time to start the other thread, so that database will get updated properly within just minute seconds, and you are good to go with another thread. Okay, in as I told you, timers will not be used much in actual load testing, because people go in general with this kind of data putting load together and they get the metrics. But there are situations where we are forced to put a sleep, as database is taking few seconds to get update. Okay, in such a case, how to make your thread sleep for 2-3 seconds, that is the challenge there. Fine. So until unless you work, you cannot understand where exactly you need to go with timers. So it all depends upon application specifics. In some cases you need to go with that because of code written at the back end. Fine. So let's write a one normal script, and we'll put a timer, and we'll see in the results how much gap, how many seconds it is waiting before the other thread starts. Okay, so yeah, record the script 7070, and let me go with record controller itself, put it group in a new controller, add suggested excludes, and start. Yeah, so go back to Firefox and hit this URL again. Fine. So this time I log in into the application. Fine. I click on flights, and yeah, continue. Let's continue with this. Okay, and finally we get a page saying thank you for booking through web tours. Okay, this is the confirmation page. So I'll go and stop the recording now. Okay, so is it recorded? It seems there are only, okay, we got it here. Now I'll create a thread group, add thread group, and I'll cut this both from here and I paste it in my thread group so that we can execute it, right? So let me add, this time we'll go with a listener called view results in a table, because we need to watch the start time and stop time, right? So this will be the sufficient one. Okay, so yeah, I guess we can run this now and see. Let's say timers. Okay, 15, 17, and again 15 you need to see. Oh, let me start with few more threads, then only I'll understand, right? So one user, let's go with 10 times. Okay, let it loop for 10 times. That would be, okay. Run them again, and now we can see 15, and again this is the second time it started. Okay, this is second loop. Calculate the time here, 15th minute, 2 second, and 15th minute 6th second. Okay, sorry, it's basically 15th hour 2 seconds. First thread started, second thread started at, where is that, here at 6 seconds, because same request started again. That means one loop is done. So second, 6 seconds, totally 4 seconds it taken for execution. Until 6th second it was still processing the first request only. Immediately it started a second request. Okay, and now for example, assume that when there is a product with the 4 items. At this moment, at 6th second, 5/60th millisecond, product got sold. So immediately within 10 milliseconds, one other guy came and trying to access it. So if there is a database loophole where it takes 3 to 4 seconds, and within that time this guy again started, and for him also it shows as a 4, because database is taking still to update there. Okay, and then if we try to access the same 4 number, somewhere the script will start failing. Fine. So in that case, no, I'm just giving a situation when you come across these kind of situation in your application, when you are testing on performance, then you can just put a sleep. Fine. Now if you feel that putting a 3-second sleep will work, then we'll select. Okay, now you just note down the time. Right now at second, and next it says 6th second. So totally 4 seconds gap between. Okay, 4 seconds took to complete each thread. So if you put the timer now, 4 plus the sleep time whatever you give, that much duration will be there between the 2 requests. Okay, don't confuse that it's already taking 4 seconds. This 4 seconds is to run the first thread. Immediately it started the second thread. Okay, there is no gap at all. To actually to make you realize, if I add a few sleep here with 3 seconds, now 4 plus 3, total 7 seconds time should be taken between the each thread. Let's add timer now. Right click, add, click on timer, and these are different timers available for us: constant, Gaussian random, Poisson random. These are based upon calculations. Okay, I'll explain you one by picking Gaussian random timer, then you will understand what all this about. So let's go with a constant timer first, and it says by default it has given us thread delay 300 milliseconds. That means 3 seconds. Basically it delays for 3 seconds for execution. Fine, 300 milliseconds. Then let's keep 300 milliseconds thread delay, and let's start the script again. Let it be fine. Place it at the end or at the top. Make it a first, so that once this thread loop is completed, control will come here and it wait for 300 milliseconds and then starts execution. Okay, so let me delete this as well, and I'll run it again. Okay, so 54th, and you can see that earlier it was 4 and now it was 7. Got it? Right, you can see that 54th second and 2, you can get approximately 8. So 4 seconds for completing the thread, and thereafter it took this 300 milliseconds to finish up the rest execution. So that's the time gap you can observe between the previous thread and now. If you delete it again, this will be reduced. Okay, click on remove, run it again. Fifteen 57th second, and yeah, see that there's now again it's 4 seconds only. 57 at first second, at 3.54 seconds only it has taken. Earlier it was 7 because we have deleted constant timer. Got it? So that's how you can check the timers between each thread. So you're just putting a pause for a mild few milliseconds to make application stable. Fine. So next thread group, next thread what you can see here is next timer is Gaussian random timer. So this is basically 300 milliseconds is a constant, and this deviation alters for every thread. For example, if you provide total thread to run for 10 times, for second thread it might take 50 seconds. That means 300 plus 50, it takes 350 seconds. And next time it might take 70 seconds. So this is constant, and the value this will be changed between 0 to 100. One time it may take 300 plus 10 310, next time it might take 50 350. Every time you add this 300, this is the constant delay. Thereafter this is the deviation, will keep on changing. This is the random number. Okay, so basically here we are, rather than giving a constant timer, we are just putting a random value 20 30. This will deviate, but this is a constant. It's up to you. If you want to go with this timer by putting a random sleep, you can go with Gaussian random timer. If you want a constant timer, if you want to use, then just go with the constant timer. There are still the other timers available here. You can see Poisson random timer, which we have their own kind of definition for it. And there is some calculation, lambda calculation, with which it will actually get the sleep 300 plus with some formula. You can get that. It might be 320 340. You can see what Poisson formula you have to get this output. Okay, I'm not that good at maths to say you what Poisson value it gives. So it's all, ultimately it's end up with a calculation and gives us a timer, how many seconds you need. It's a constant or Gaussian random or Poisson or whatever it may be. Fine. So that's how you can put a sleep between the threads and mimic the original behavior of your application. But as I said you, this will not be used much in practical, but still people will go with this if they have any dependencies with their application. Fine. So that's it about the timers, and we have one more timer called constant throughput timer, which we will see in the coming session. Thank you. Right, so let's see what constant throughput timer is about. So I'll add here itself, not a problem. Constant timer, constant throughput timer. Okay, so if you see the values, the parameters, what we need to pass it here, what is the target throughput you need to provide? Basically, are you clear and understanding what throughput is? It's kind of how many samples or how many bytes it's returning per minute. So we say it as throughput may be measured in terms of bytes or requests or anything. It's like how many requests we are getting from server per minute. That is actually we are trying to tell here target throughput. So okay, let me take you one real-time example. Wait, I'll open my notepad. Now assume that there are total 4 petrol bunks. Okay, I'm just telling you out of box example to make you understand about throughput. Okay, assume that there are total 4 petrol bunks, and each bunk can pump 100 liters of petrol in 1 minute. Okay, 100 liters of petrol. Right, so that's the capacity. So that means 4 servers. Assume that there are total 4 servers, 4 petrol bunks, 4 servers. Each petrol bunk 100 liters, each server 100 requests can serve per minute. Just assume, just compare both. So that means total this petrol bunk, in a big petrol pump, there are total 4 bunks, right? 400 liters is the throughput per minute it can provide. This is the maximum throughput that this petrol bunk can provide. These are 4 different bunks available in that petrol bunk organization. So by seeing this example, what can you say that what is the performance of that petrol bunk? And we say there are total 4 petrol bunks inside it, and 400 liters you can get, because each petrol bunk can give 100 liters, and we say 400 liters per minute you can get it if you go to that petrol bunk shop. Fine. Now here in our application we have 4 servers maintaining that application, and we can say that each server can give 100 requests per minute. So ultimately 400 requests per minute you can get it. That is the maximum. And now 2 cars, assume that 2 cars just came into that shed, petrol bunk shed. Fine. So now what is the throughput it is providing? So 2 cars went into 2 petrol bunks out of 4. So 2 servers are idle. That means 2 petrol bunks are idle now. Fine. So 2 are working for 2 cars. It is providing 100 for 1 car, 100 for 1 car. And output what it is getting is throughput is 200 requests, 200 liters per minute. It is serving 200 liters per minute right now when there are 2 cars. That means 200 requests per minute when there are 2 users. Fine. If 2 users are hitting the application at a time, it is serving 200 requests. It's the throughput it is giving, and 200 requests we have idle. If you go with the 4 users, and it gives 400 requests. Fine, because still the 2 servers will come into active mode and they serve us. If you go beyond 4 users, still if you go for 10 users, still it gives 400 requests only, right? Because capacity itself 400. So if there are, as I told you in this example, 4 petrol bunks, 4 cars has 10 cars came, okay, they should stand in queue. However, it can serve only 4 cars at a time. It's just pumping into 4 cars. The remaining 4 cars should stand in queue. However, the output throughput will not change. Maximum it can give is 400. If you go for 2 users, it will give you 200, 3 300, 4 users 400, but 5th user also it stands at 400 only. That is the maximum throughput it's giving to you. Fine. So that's how you can actually calculate throughput. How many requests per second are serving? How many requests per second that server is providing us? Fine. So that's about just throughput. Hope you got clear picture now by taking this real-time example. Yeah, let's go back to our script. Now, what is your target throughput? And I say 200 samples required. Fine. Though it can serve 400 samples, I don't know what how many samples this WebTours application serve, but just assume that in your case it can serve 400 samples. Sample means nothing but requests. 400 requests per minute. But my target is let it serve 200 requests per second. If it exceeds, just pass. Now, where this timer will come into real picture, now just get understand. Okay, now 4 cars, 6 cars coming into petrol bunk shed. Fine. What owner has said to me, only serve 200 liters per minute. Though you have 4 bunks, serve only 200 liters per minute. If then only 2 cars will be served, but still 2, if there are 6 cars coming, still 4 are pending. Make it pass, make it hold. Okay, let them wait. In the same way we are saying timer will make let that users wait, because this guy has provided target throughput only 200 requests per minute. So as per this request, it will serve only for 200 requests per minute. What all other threads, when other threads are trying to access system, it will make them pass. Once this serving is done, then those threads will start execution. Okay, so execution between the threads, the pass time depends upon the throughput. Now got it? So in our earlier session we have just went with a constant timer by putting 300 milliseconds wait. Okay, so it constantly put wait of 300 seconds, but here how many seconds it should wait to other thread to start? It depends upon your throughput. If throughput is only 100, go ahead, don't wait, just start. But if it is 200, then wait till it's served and then come in. Okay, so this is where constant throughput timer is used. And as I told you in the example, if database have a backend servers, whatever it may be, if it crosses 1000 requests per minute, it might take some time to update. In that cases, please put in a pass. Okay, let be in a pass mode. All other users coming into execution will be in a pass mode. Once this request come down or the serving is done, then other request will fall into the execution mode. Got it? So this is where you use constant throughput timer. So calculate throughput based on this thread only. If you have multiple threads, if there are total 10 threads running at a time, it calculates for all the threads and it gives the output. It's up to you what you use in this drop down. Okay, so loop count 10. If you run this, okay, now however I'll disable, let's disable this constant timer, Gaussian random timer, and we cannot accurately see the output how it is getting here. Fine, because we don't have information about how many bytes it is returning per minute. For that you have to do other operation. We have just randomly recorded it, right? And let's see, 7 to 1852 and next 4 seconds. That means what is the timer constant? 1000 samples we have provided it, right? So the first request which is served, the number of requests which is returning is less than 1000. That's the reason the second thread started immediately. If this thread serving crosses 1000, then it will wait until this throughput comes down and then this will get added. Okay, so that's it about constant throughput timer and pretty much about the timers concepts. So in 90% of the cases you might not get this, you might not get the use of these timers when you are actually writing a script, but whenever you feel that if you want a minute gap, then you can go ahead with these timers. So that's it about this section.